Welcome to the Bow and Low Show. Marking territory. Before we get started, I have a question for you. What is it in this country that we have outsourced every single aspect of conflict resolution to the state? We outsource it to the state, the courts, and the police. I don't understand this. A long time ago, in the olden days, in this country, we used to have duels. And I know a lot of people may view duels as a sort of barbaric practice, but there was a system in place. And oftentimes, duels resulted in nobody getting killed. It did happen sometimes, but there was a sort of honor system that each participant was supposed to follow. And there was many cases where it didn't even come to the duel, and both men retained their honor, and they resolved the disagreement or the conflict among themselves. In the 20th century, we used to have fisticuffs or barroom brawls. Nowadays, in this country, oftentimes for the most minor of grievances, the police and the state are involved. What is this? Is it because we are so addicted to comfort and convenience that we are willing to pay exorbitant taxes for a police state, an ever-encroaching police state, a corrupt legal system? Is it because, as a country, is the new American way paying someone or some bureaucracy to do the things that you don't want to do? Is that really the American way? It sure seems that way. You know, everybody wants a clean house, but nobody wants to get their hands dirty. You know, this is what, there's really a sickness within our race. And I don't think we're going to get anywhere until we confront this sickness and its symptoms. And that's probably something I'm going to talk about here in the future. You know, this outsourcing is really one of the things I believe that has led to what one of my friends in college used to say, a term he came up with, which was the pussification of America. Not pacification, but pussification. Anyways, let's get started. I wanted to take a few minutes and say just a few things about the murder of Austin Metcalf. You know, on this channel, I've made it quite clear that I really do not care for talking about a lot of current events. I try my best to stay away from the news cycle because all of that stuff is produced to make you feel and think a certain way. However, we cannot get away from it. And while this case, many such cases have happened over the decades, and it's not particularly uncommon. It's actually quite common. And I try to steer away from this subject, from the topic of current events, because there's so many people that cover it as well. But I must admit that this case, I have been rather fixated on it. And I try to avoid such things, like I said, but there's not a lot that I can say that hasn't already been said by a variety of different people with our views. there's not a lot to be said. I'm not going to dwell upon the particulars of the case. You know, they were twin brothers, and they seemed like your typical Texan family from what I've gathered. Can you imagine what Austin's twin brother has had to endure since, I believe it was April 3rd? Having your twin brother, who you shared the womb with and was conceived at the same time. You know, it always hurts when you lose a loved one, of course. A mother, a father, definitely. Brother, sister, friends, family. It hurts. But twins, they seem to have a special bond. I couldn't imagine the pain. I truly couldn't. One of the things I did want to talk about, though, that I haven't seen many people speak upon, there has been righteous anger and moral indignation at the vast sum of money that Carmelo Anthony and his family have received. I'm not sure what the number is now. I'm sure it's around $1 million. Maybe it's over $1 million. I haven't kept up with it. You know, this sends a dangerous message in this country. Kill a white boy, your family's going to get rich. But I'm not here to talk about the moral indignation. A lot of people seem to think that the black community has raised this money for Carmelo. I would be really interested to see who the biggest donors to his Give, Send, Go fund is. It would be interesting to know how many Bergs, how many Steens, how many NGOs, how many special interest groups have funded this murder. Or should I say rewarded this murder. I mean, do you really think that the black community in this country, I'm sure, yeah, definitely a percentage and paltry sums was donated by the black community. But I would imagine your biggest donations came from what I was just speaking of, churches, special interest groups. It would be fascinating to know this. Another thing, one of the things, and I have listened, I have kept up with this case. I actually sat down and listened to the entire press conference that Anthony's family had given. What was that group? Next Generation Action Network. Boy, that's a grift if you have ever seen one. I noticed that the guy, I think his name's Dominique Alexander, I'm not sure, don't hold me to that, I've not paid attention, I could be incorrect, but he made sure to advertise and mention this numerous times during that press conference. You know, in this case, they're going to drag Austin Metcalf's name through the mud. They're going to try, they're already doing it, you know, online, saying that he got what he deserved from many members of the black community. One of the most stunning things about this case is Jeff Metcalf's reaction. He came out shortly after the murder and said that he forgave Carmelo. And at the time, I seen some people jumping up on this man, and I refused to. I refused to pass judgment because this man has just lost his world. This man took his sons hunting, boar hunting. He was an involved father, absolutely. So I was willing to not take too much stock in that, given the situation. I mean, that is a pain that I hope I never feel, is the pain of losing a child. It goes completely against the natural order of things. That is a pain. That's a pain I don't know if I could deal with. And I sympathize with anyone that has had to bury one of their children. I can't imagine. It's unfathomable to me. So I was willing to not take too much stock into that, his statements. Yet, however, after the way that he was treated when he showed up to Carmelo Anthony's press conference, and the things that those blacks had the audacity to say about him, and not only that, it was the fact that he was swatted shortly thereafter. Police raided. Someone involved in that press conference called and said that there was some sort of terroristic threat at his residence. Can you imagine that? And then yesterday, there was a protest that was to be held in Frisco, Texas there, by some sort of upstart white advocacy group, which it turns out that the lead organizer of this himself is a member of the tribe. But Metcalf's father called this guy, and there's video of it, you can find it, and he said, he told this Jew that he was part of the fucking problem regarding the racial division, things of that nature. So that leaves me with questions. There is one of two things that is happening here. Many people are saying that this man that his father is one of the reasons that our people are in the state that they're in. I don't know if this is if this explanation that is often used of pathological altruism, I don't know if this is its manifestation. I don't know if it is just the logical conclusion of Christian morality. It's one of those two. You know, I don't understand that. As an aside, I want to briefly tell you about a case that happened down in East Tampa. I believe it was back in 2014. There was a black girl. Her name was Felicia Williams. She was 9 years old. She was kidnapped, raped, and murdered. And her body was thrown off of a bridge and found the next day, I believe. She was raped and murdered by a man named Granville Ritchie, who was also black. I believe it was 5 years ago, he was sentenced to death. And there are news clippings, and there's a video made by one of my old friends on a channel called FedEx Me Your Drugs. He covered this story. The mother, the grandmother of Felicia, the mother especially, wanted retribution. She wanted to see Granville Ritchie hung. However, the father of Felicia Williams forgave Granville Ritchie and told him that he was praying for him, that he was going to need God with what he was facing. And he chalked up the rape and murder of his 9-year-old daughter as some sort of mistake. In this scenario, I think, and there are similarities, Austin's mother, she does not feel the same way. Certainly not his twin brother, that Austin's father has failed. What does this say? If we're looking at the first of two possible explanations into the mindset of Jeff Metcalf, if we're going with the first that I'm discussing now, what does that say about forgiveness and for love and about hate? You know, in our society today, I often see signs. They're usually posted in people's yards during Gay Pride Month, which I noticed this past year was really subdued. But they always have these signs that says, "Hate has no home here." And their vision of a society is, for one, that hate is the most egregious sin that you can commit in modernity. Mr. Metcalf, his statements, I do not understand. If anybody hurts my family or my daughter, I will hate you. And I will want retribution. I will want retaliation. An eye for an eye. You know, you often hear the statement that an eye for an eye and that violence won't bring and won't make amends for the offense that was committed against you. And that's true. But it sends a message. It sends a strong message that if you fuck around, you'll find out. However, that being the title of this video, Fafo, I've come to see it that is the 21st century opiate of the right-wing masses. Because let's be honest here, I see a whole lot of fucking around, yet I don't see much finding out. Which leads to a possible solution that I've touched upon and talked about before. You know, if you don't have the capacity to hate something which harms that which you love, if you don't have that capacity and that ability, can you say that you're even capable of loving something that is wonderful and beautiful? Hate is a survival mechanism. And hate is the response of the rational and the sane, given the circumstances. Now, of course, hate can consume you. And you do need to guard against that. But I don't view love and hate as opposites. Hate is a counterweight. It is a counterbalance to love. The true opposite of both of these is indifference. And if I was in that situation, God forbid I ever find myself in a situation like that, I would never forgive those that harmed my family. I would hate them. And I would view it as a completely moral and righteous hatred. And they say that time heals all wounds. That's a lie. That's not a scar. Time heals scars and forms scars, but this is a tremendous void. This is a hole that won't never heal. And this was the taking of a promise of what could have been. So I pray that these statements made by Mr. Metcalf's father aren't genuine. Which leads me to the second option, that perhaps he has been coerced or threatened, as this case is you could say it is a racial powder keg in this country. Perhaps there's members of his church, or a priest, a reverend, I'm not sure what their Christian affiliation would be. Maybe it was a shadowy figure from the government or law enforcement who has coerced him to walk this line. All in the face of many members on social media and elsewhere. I mean, Carmelo Anthony has t-shirts that have been made with his likeness on them. And many inflammatory remarks and statements made by the black community. And there has even been, I have even seen video footage of blacks saying that Mr. Metcalf's response is a slap in the face to his son's dignity. So it's one of those two things. It's either the culmination of some sort of Christian morality or pathological altruism, or he has been coerced to make such statements. I don't know which. I'm not going to entertain or talk about that further. There's not much else I could say about this except one of the solutions to this situation is the idea that I've put forth and some of my friends about the syndicate and the secret society. You need a community. You need a network. I'm not talking about an online community. You need people around you in proximity, not spread out in some sort of public-facing white advocacy group in this country, although that could help you meet people. I'm talking about the people that is close to you, within your community. This is really going to embolden the black community, especially given what is to come in the trial. I could see it being possible that Anthony only receives manslaughter. Might even be possible that he walks. That would be an absolute miscarriage of justice, but really in this country, is there such a thing as justice these days? You know, I'm not encouraging violence for any of the informant types that very well is probably listening to this. I'm not encouraging violence, but I will say this. Vigilantism, or the threat of it, would prevent many of these things, many of these instances. That's not an endorsement, but a fact. There was a reason that the Klan rose to prominence in the 1860s during the Reconstruction of the South. There is a reason. Not many people know that. Certainly not many people in the mainstream. But there is a reason. You know, that's the idea of the secret society and the syndicate within your community. And it can, I know it makes a lot of people nervous, but you need a network. But anyways, that's about all I have to say about this situation. It'll be interesting to see how things play out regarding this case. If you're a praying man or woman, I would keep this family and the many others in your thoughts and prayers. And, oh yeah, I meant to add this. I've noticed a rash of accounts, social media accounts and influencers doing the posting black on white crime statistics, cases, things like that. You know, I suppose that is a way of reaching people who are asleep, our people who are asleep. And I do understand the utility of that, but I will say this, don't dwell too much on a lot of that stuff. A lot of that stuff is what I call sadomasochist nationalism. You're trying to portray, and you start to just view our people as we are always innocent, we are always victims, we are always law-abiding. I'll tell you something. Our people, throughout our history, were not these things. We were a very proud and victorious people. This is often used against us, but I revel in it, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the ruthlessness that our people can show and have been able to show throughout history. We've had to. Don't fall into this sort of just, oh, we're white and we're just victims. It's not going to get you anywhere. We've seen that play out hundreds of thousands of times. We've seen it play out with how these people treated Mr. Metcalf when he showed up at that goddamn press conference. We've seen it. That victimhood shit also psychologically has an effect on you. So, guard against that, you know. Guard against that. But anyways, I'm going to go fishing. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.